Hello and welcome to this video and to the best and worst books I read in 2023. Now I know most people on the book online world do this as separate videos, but I prefer to put it together. I don't ever have loads I want to say about things because I will have covered the books in book reviews and things. But I do also find the videos really interesting to see what people didn't like and did like. Which is why I wanted to film one. And it was fun looking back at my 2022 version of this video. A, to remember the books, and B, my thoughts and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm only actually going to talk about 4 books. Too bad, too good, sort of. Because I had a very average reading year last year. My average score ended up at like 3.53 or something like that. It was very much 3s and 3.5 stars. It was very sort of like all the books were fine. None of them stood out loads. None of them were really bad. So there's only a couple either side that are actually of significance to talk about. So what I'll do is I'll start with the 2 that I didn't like least liked, starting with the worst, going to the one that was slightly better, and then we'll go to the best, again starting at the 4.5 and ending with the 5. Make sense? Cool. The prize of the worst book I read in 2023 goes to Deathloop by G. Brayley. This is a book that I had on my Kindle. When I first got my Kindle back in like 2012, I got overexcited and filled it with lots of free books. And this was one of them, which I never read. But then I did Buzzwordathon last year and the first prompt was Life or Death, and the only book I had that fit that was this one. So I read this way back in January, on my honeymoon in fact, and yeah, it's bad. I wouldn't recommend. I gave this book 1.5 stars, which is probably generous. I think that's the lowest I've ever rated a book. Possibly, probably. I can't remember the character names, but we're following a guy who essentially keeps seeing people die, and he thinks he's in a death loop, and he tries to come out of it, and there's a whole heap of stuff. It doesn't make sense. The writing is awful. If you want to know more of my feelings, I'll link my January book review up here for you. But yeah, wouldn't recommend. Really bad. Don't do it to yourself. I don't actually know if it's still available, but there we go. So that was Deathloop by G. Brayley. And then the next book, so the last of my worst books, is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. Now, there are people that love this book and think it's great, but it just wasn't for me. I did not get on with the writing style of this. We're following our main character, who is a trans woman and really wants to have a baby. She then sort of enters an arrangement with her ex, who is now detransitioned to be a man again, who was a trans woman when she was dating him. Apologies if I'm getting the terminologies wrong. It's very yeah, this is part of my problem with the book. He is in a relationship and has got his girlfriend pregnant, and I can't remember why the trans woman then comes to be part of that 3 in an idea to look after the baby. But the text is very verbose. It goes on a lot, and we go on these massive tangents all over the place that didn't seem to have a point. It basically left me feeling very confused, and the reason I wanted to read the book was to try and get a better understanding of the trans community, perhaps, about the idea of detransitioning and that kind of thing, and it didn't help me at all. So I'm still on that. I still want to learn more. So for Christmas this year, oh, there goes all my books, I have A Girlhood, A Letter to My Transgender Daughter, which I'm hoping, it being a memoir, is going to be a lot more use to me than Detransition Baby was, because quite frankly, I have no idea what I actually read with that book. I still find it very confusing and no idea what I actually read, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so that one I actually gave 2 stars. Deathloop was 1.5, and they were the 2 worst books that I read in 2023. So although there were others that maybe got a 2.5 or a low 3, those are the ones that stood out as being the worst books that I read last year. And as I said, there are baby people out there that love them. I know certainly for Detransition Baby there is a fan base for it, but I unfortunately am not one of them. So let's go on to the flip side, onto the other side of the coin, and to the best books that I read in 2023. And when I said 2 books-ish for each thing, the reason being is that in sort of second place, I guess, of best books is the entire Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. Again, I read these pretty early on in the year. In fact, the early part of the year was quite a good time. It's where most of my high rated books came, and then it sort of tailed off towards the end. And I gave all 3 of these books 4.5 stars. So we have Get a Life Chloe Brown, Take a Hint Danny Brown, and Act Your Age Eve Brown as part of that trilogy. So each one is focusing on a different Brown sister, and all 3 are romances, so they have their own way of finding their one, I guess. So Chloe Brown is all about taking risks. She lives quite a sheltered life due to illness, so doesn't do a lot, if that makes sense. She stays in a lot, and she wanted to expand her horizons, so she calls on Red, I believe his name is, to do that one. Although I liked all 3, my personal favourite was Danny Brown. That's because it has fake dating in it, which is my favourite romance trope. And Danny and Zaf both work at a university, and for mutual benefit decide to fake date, but obviously that we all know where that leads. And then Act Your Age Eve Brown was just fun. She is sort of written out of the family's finances, so has to go and find her own way in life, and ends up working in a hotel with, I can't remember his name, but him, and they don't like each other. It's more sort of enemies to lovers, which I don't normally like, but it worked in this situation for the characters that we had there. And in all of them we had some good exploration around different mental health issues and other things like that. And they were just really fun. They were light-hearted enough, but went into serious topics. They made me laugh. Some of the situations that the sisters get themselves into are a bit nutty, but it still seemed to make sense. It didn't seem to go too far and farcical for it. And yes, there are some smutty scenes which are handled and written really well. So yes, very much enjoyed my time with the Brown sisters. Looking forward to rereading them at some point, and a very worthy second place of best books of 2023 for me. I seem to keep coughing, so apologies if it suddenly looks like I'm about to cry about the best book of 2023, and it's a surprise for me. I think I've said this a lot recently, but I'm gonna share it again. I very, very rarely give a book 5 stars. I don't know what it is about me. I'd like to be one of those people that's like, yeah, it was 5 stars, but over the sort of 3 years I've been tracking my books and actually rating them, I've given 5. And this year I only had 1, so it was obviously a clear winner of that. But it was a surprise, and that is, I think, the main point for me to actually give a book 5 stars, is there has to be a surprise to it. And for this book, I went into it going, it's a romance, I'll probably like it, but it's gonna be sort of standard, run-of-the-mill, nothing's gonna, you know, I'll enjoy my time reading it, but that'll be it kind of thing. And it shocked me in that I got so engrossed in it I couldn't put it down. It made me squeal. I was so invested in it that I couldn't not give it 5 stars just because of the sheer enjoyment I got from it. And that was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a very hyped romance book. We all know it. If you don't know what it's about, I'd be surprised. But as a quick synopsis, I wish I could remember character names. But our main character, she wants her best friend to date a guy because they're like a great match. But her best friend won't do it because she once had a small dalliance with him and doesn't want to, you know, break girl code and stuff. So she grabs the first man that she finds to kiss him, to be like, look, I've got a boyfriend, it's fine, you go and date that guy. And that guy happens to be like a PhD tutor, very grumpy, sullen, shocked by it. And then, as I said earlier, there is an element of fake dating in this, which is my absolute favourite. So to benefit both of them, they enter into a fake relationship, which leads them into all sorts of different circumstances. And yeah, I wouldn't say this is the best written book. It's not. I wouldn't say this is the best romance in the world, because it probably isn't. But there was something about it that really, really drew me in. It went into parts of me that I didn't know that it was going to. And I was so hooked that the last however many pages I literally was like, Pete, go away. I'm gonna finish this book because I have to know how it pans out. I know it's a romance, but I have to know how it pans out. And I squealed, and I don't do that very often either. So I'm not really going on the literary merit of this book, but more my reading experience and the feeling that it gave me and the enjoyment that it gave me. It had to be 5 stars, and thus the best book that I read in 2023. Who would have thought it, eh? But that was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I do have Love on the Brain. I bought that very soon after I read Love Hypothesis, but now I'm a bit scared about reading it because I've heard it's not as good, and that worries me a bit. But there we go. As I mentioned, 2023 was a bit of a meh reading year. I did do a very big conscious effort of trying to get books off my TBR that I perhaps had lost interest in, so that might be part of it. It does mean that I am now left with all books that in some way, shape or form do excite me and make me want to go and read them, so that's a positive. I ended up with 63 books read, which is over the 52 that I had initially set myself as a goal. I did up that to 60, so I surpassed that as well, but it is less on the year before. But I'm not totally surprised by that, what with the sort of summer months, tail end of June, July, beginning of August, being my first trimester of pregnancy, and I just couldn't stay awake, so I couldn't read very much. That's sort of the be all and end all of it really for that point. So I also didn't do any like challenges, so the previous year I'd done how many can I read in a weekend, how many in 24 hours, that kind of thing. And majority of the books I was reading were like full proper novels. You can see a sneak peek of January's book review here because it's next to me, and you can see that some of these books are not as long, so already I'm doing well in terms of numbers for that, but I won't go into that. If you are interested in what I'm in these and what else I read in January, or the books that I read across 2023 or the lifespan of my channel, I will link the playlist in the description, but I'll also put it at the end of this video. I now have years of book reviews, so if you are interested in any of that, you can go and have a look at that. Also, again, if you're interested in what I'm reading in January or throughout the year, or just my life in general and how we navigate the imminent arrival of our child, do click that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!